Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dissolves war cabinet amid growing tensions within his coalition government.
A major European defence expo is currently showing without Israeli participation.
The law on nature restoration has been adopted by the European Union after months of negotiations. After a week of twists and turns, the official campaign of the early parliamentary elections is open in France. The nominations are closed and the candidates who will try to win one of the 577 seats in the National Assembly were revealed. The voting system is a two-round majority system. Voters are called to the polls on June 30 and July 7 to elect their deputies. President Emmanuel Macron called for early parliamentary elections following the victory of the far-right party of the National Rally in the European elections. Last week was marked by intense negotiations to form alliances. The left parties rallied under the banner of the New Popular Front. On the right, the alliance of the Liberal Conservative Republicans Party with the far-right National Rally has aroused controversy. Meanwhile, demonstrations against the far right took place throughout France.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has officially dissolved his six-member war cabinet following the recent departure of former General Benny Gantz, a previously key figure in the Israel-Haza War. The dissolution of the cabinet, which had formed after the October 11th attacks to manage military campaigns against Hamas, marks a shift in Israel's coalition government. Netanyahu will now consult a smaller group of ministers, including members of the previous cabinet, Israeli Minister of Defense and Strategic Affairs Minister. Although other members of the government seek inclusion as a consultant of the war, recent political infighting marks an atmosphere of tension within Israeli politics.
At least 19 Muslims have died, with another 2,000 ill from heat stroke amid soaring temperatures in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. More than 1.8 million Muslims were completing their 5-day Hajj pilgrimage when temperatures rose to 48 degrees, according to the Saudi National Center for Meteorology. Many were left sick and afflicted with sunburns. Under umbrellas, scarves and shade, Muslims performed the symbolic stoning of the devil ceremony to wrap up their final days of Hajj. This week, Russian President Vladimir Putin will visit North Korea for the first time in 24 years. The leaders recently discussed boosting the country's defensive ties, according to Russian and North Korean officials. Many expect this fresh round of talks to touch on further strengthening the pair's alliance and advancing arms transfers, an allegation both nations have denied. Moscow previously said it appreciates Pyongyang's support for Russia's military invasion of Ukraine. Almost a dozen people have died in two separate Mediterranean shipwrecks. Both the accidents, intercepted off the Italian coast, involved suspected migrants. An estimated 10 people died aboard a boat near Lampedusa Island, with roughly 50 people evacuated, a German charity wrote online. Further east, near Calabria, the authorities searched for 50 missing people cast adrift from another shipwreck, according to the Italian Coast Guard. Survivors were brought ashore.
Israel has been banned from participating in the International Defense Expo Eurosatory in Paris. A French court last week ruled in favor of 4 NGOs that requested Israeli companies, as well as the participation of employees or representatives of any nationality, be banned in the show. Activists are still protesting, as many other arms manufacturers attending are still selling to Israel. The event organizers said they will appeal the court decision as soon as possible. The exhibition runs to Friday.
The The law on nature restoration has been adopted by the European Union after months of negotiations. Meeting in Luxembourg on Monday, the environment ministers reached a qualified majority. The law aims to restore at least 20% of the bloc's land and sea areas by 2030. This is a relief for environmental organizations.
It is historic because it will really set legally binding targets for member states to start restoring many degraded ecosystems, from forests through freshwater ecosystems, to restore nature in cities, to restore pollinators. So it's really very important.
The adoption, however, has caused a political stir. All eyes are in Vienna, which has shifted the balance of power between the capitals. Austria's ecologist climate minister has validated the law, making it possible to obtain a qualified majority, a decision that runs counter to the line taken by the Austrian chancellor. The head of the government, who comes from the center-right, said that his country intended to abstain, a choice ultimately rejected by the minister.
I know I will face opposition in Austria on this, but I'm convinced that this is the time to adopt this law.
The vote puts an end to a long campaign of political contestation, led mainly by the EPP.
We are all on this. It's not even a debate about nature restoration anymore.
Es una ley que apuesta por el diálogo para poder conseguir una restauración de los ecosistemas, dando una oportunidad a que el conjunto de actividades económicas que dependen directamente del buen estado de conservación de la naturaleza puedan seguir desarrollándose.
In the long term, the law aims to restore all ecosystems in need by 2050. The member states will now have to submit their national plans for implementing these commitments to the European Commission.
A first for a Portuguese director at Cannes, Miguel Gomes' Best Director Prize, one of the most important at the 77th edition of the Cannes Film Festival, comes for a director already used to the big stage. After Taboo and the Arabian Nights trilogy, Gomes' Grand Tour brought the prestigious award, which he has cherished since he was a child.
Como espectador de cinema, desde miúdo, vou começar a ver filmes portugueses, a pensar isto é possível fazer este cinema no meu país, foi marcante, foi mesmo decisivo, e eu tenho um sentimento de pertença relativamente ao cinema português. Não sei se vou dizer uma heresia, mas eu sinceramente sinto-me mais esse sentimento de pertença relativamente ao cinema português do que relativamente ao próprio país.
Set in 1918, Grand Tour depicts the story of a man who runs away from his fiancée, traveling through various countries in Asia. The film itself is the result of a long trip by the director with a small crew to the four corners of the continent. Miguel Gomes thus wanted to combine two facets, documenting the real world and creating another, an imaginary
duas
one.
possibilidades do cinema: registar o mundo tal como hoje o conhecemos, colocar uma câmara, ir para um sítio, filmar aquilo que está à nossa frente, e por outro lado inventar um mundo, inventar o nascer do sol ou o pôr do sol num sítio onde não há janelas, que é o espaço do estúdio. Eu tentei fazer um clássico filme de aventuras, mas trabalhando a partir desses materiais tão diversos.
Grand Tour will debut in main cinemas after the summer. Gomes hopes that prize he won at Cannes will enable him to finance his next project, an epic film based on the Brazilian literary classic The Hinterland by Euclides da Cunha. The company behind the plan of establishing Europe's largest lithium mine in Serbia is making a fresh effort to put it back on the table. In 2022, following massive protests, the Serbian government stopped the Jadar project. The company, Rio Tinto, recently published an environmental study claiming the mining project wouldn't impact the environment as feared.
Objavljivanje ovih nacrta ne znači da se nastavlja sa realizacijom projekta Jadar. Ukoliko dođe do realizacije projekta Jadar, onda bi studije bile podnete u redovnoj proceduri koja je predviđena zakonom i koja podrazumeva javnu raspravu.
The ore would be mined at depths between 370 and 650 meters. 2 years ago, the Serbian Academy of Science and Arts announced the implementation of the Jadar project would have devastating effects on the environment. The project is valued at nearly 200 billion euros.
Realizacija projekta Jadar vodila bi masivnoj devastaciji prostora, trajnoj promjeni karaktera predela, degradaciji biodiverziteta, zemljišta, šuma, površinskih i podzemnih voda, raseljavanju domaćeg stanovništva.
By publishing the working draft of the study, Rio Tinto says they hope to start a public debate on the environmental impact. Prime Minister Milos Vučević has not announced the future moves of his cabinet, but emphasizes that lithium can be a serious advantage for Serbia.
I čuvati ekologiju, odnosno životnu sredinu i ljude. Ja verujem da je to strateška prednost Srbije u rudama i mineralima. I ja verujem da mi moramo da vodimo računa o nacionalnim interesima i interesima našeg naroda, a ne o interesima privatnih kompanija.
According to a Financial Times interview of Serbia's President Aleksandar Vučić, the Serbian government has had a positive rethink for the project.
Euronews. The news